Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. We are doing this today for anybody who is a real estate agent, potentially those who are thinking about getting into real estate. Of course, you got to get your license. And this gentleman appears to help you. This is somebody who had essentially 6 months of real estate experience, no money in the bank, was wondering what the heck is he going to do with his life, implemented some powerful systems that he came up with so that he became one of the top 10 agents in an area of 2000. The company had 2000, he was top 10. That's just that demonstrates his tenacity and his experience in coaching people along through real estate. And he's back with us. Mike Fiddler joins us here on the program. Hey, Mike, how are you?
I'm great, Steve. How are you?
I'm ready to make some money.
Yeah, let's just dive right in. There we go.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting that we spoke last and I presented to you, well, there's not a lot of inventory around in terms of houses where I am. And you said, never even worry about that. And you gave some great examples of how you can make that work for you as a real estate agent. And of course, now in the last week, I'm seeing more and more signs pop up. It's spring, so no surprise there.
Yeah.
There's money to be made out there in real estate, isn't there?
Absolutely. Yeah. The sad thing is not a lot of agents take advantage of it. We get in the business and somebody said, well, you should get your license. And you hear about all the freedom and flexibility and, you can work whatever hours you want and you can make as much money as you want. And then you get in the business and you find out, yeah, it doesn't work like that. You can turn around and help family or something or neighbors and do a deal here or there. But if you want to make money, you obviously have to do multiple deals every month. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of where a coach comes in and it can help you.
Does it become a lifestyle? What do I mean by that? There's somebody who I'm connected with, and I see him everywhere on Facebook. He's doing this, he's doing that. He puts himself out there, networking events, award situations. He's a great guy. You want to be around him. Very personable, very caring, very community connected. It works for him. And he and his wife work together. He's kind of the face of the business, but she's right there with him. They're getting listings left and right. I see, because he posts them on Facebook. Do you have to, I guess, best description, work the system there, be out there?
Yeah, I think there's two things to being successful that any successful agent will tell you the same thing. Number one is you have to be recognizable. People have to see you out there. Whether it's through a brand that you're using or a billboard or whatever, that's kind of how I used my fiddle. That fiddle had nothing to do with real estate, but it got me into doors that I probably wouldn't have got into on my own. So that's the first thing is you got to be out there. People got to know you're there. One of the things I always said every morning when I was in business, I would wake up and I'd say, somebody out there is going to list their house today. They just don't know how to find me, so I've got to go find them. And that's the way I started until that fiddle started working to get me in more than I was on my own. And then the second thing is skill level. You've got to really know what you're doing. There's a lot of people out there that they get a license, but they never get trained. You think about any business that you've ever gone into, you get trained. You almost always have some kind of a probationary period, right? Let's see how good you are. Let's see if you can do it. Well, there's no such thing in real estate. It doesn't exist. On day one, you could actually show somebody a house, write a contract, and then when they close, you get paid. And you didn't know the first thing about what you were doing. That's why training is so important, in my opinion.
Is that part of the training that you offer within your coaching programs?
Absolutely. Yeah, from day one. Here's what we need to start doing from day one. I kid around, but it's really not kidding around when I ask people, how well do you know your neighbors? And they'll say, oh, no, I know them. Oh, okay. You have their cell phone number? Yeah, I've got cell phone number. Okay. What kind of food do they like? What kind of movies do they like? Huh? What kind of music do they like? What? Yeah, you don't know them. You know enough to wave when they drive by you, but you don't know them. You got to get to know them because that's the only way they're going to give you business down the road is if they already like and trust you.
The trust thing is a big factor in anything, any kind of business, and it takes work. This is not easy. Let's get that out there.
Yeah.
It's a continual evolution of you putting yourself out there. And this is true in any business, putting yourself out there, connecting with people, even if you're not doing business with somebody, knowing them, knowing their family situation, knowing what drives them, what is exciting to them.
Yeah.
I learned something here in terms of what you offer in your coaching programs. And it sounds like if somebody is interested in real estate, they know there's success, there's money to be made out there. They go get their license. The second call they make, aside from telling their spouse or their parent, hey, I got a license, should be to you because you're the one that's going to take them by, like a mentor as a coach and work them through and show them what they should be doing in the direction they should be going in. Am I getting that right?
Yeah, as interesting you say it that way, because I was with a group of agents yesterday, and they have some very big producing people who actually own the business and do a really great job. But they brought me in because a lot of their other agents are not doing that. And they said, I'm not really sure why. And I said, well, when we first get in the business, unlike any other business, if you go to interview for any other business, the first thing you want to know is, am I going to make enough money to be able to pay my bills? Well, they don't ask that question in real estate. Nobody asks that question, and I say all the time, why did you get into a business when you're going to go broke? And because that's what happens to a lot of people. They go broke. Why? They don't get trained. They never learn how to generate business. And it's the biggest mistake most people make. Well, this company has just decided to bring me in now, and I'm going to be doing a weekly training session with their agents for the next 6 months. And they're covering it all, which is unheard of. But they understand the value because I coach them. I help them.
Right.
And now they want me to pretty much clone their agents to work like they do, which I think is great.
Well, it's also you could be super successful and have it pretty much figured out. But let's be honest, you're working on your success. Of course, these people could be part of a real estate agency, but you don't have the time and you don't want to hold them accountable. You just want to say, here, just all right, work under my umbrella, sell, bring listings in, and generate revenue for me as well as yourself. Maybe they don't want to be bothered with that. And that's a perfect scenario for you as well.
Yeah. My first broker, the training that I got from my first broker went like this. There's the phone, make it work.
Right.
That was it, and I've met a lot of other
Oh,
salespeople.
wait, left one thing out. Here's the login for MLS. All right, I'll see you.
Yeah. I'm starting to convince people that MLS is not what they think it is.
Yeah.
It's just one small tool. And most top producers will say, it's just one tool that I use. And people think that that's everything. When buyers go looking online right now, there's all kinds of studies on this. First place they look, they either go to Zillow or they go to Realtor.com. And they think they're seeing everything. And they're only seeing a small percentage of what could be out there, what a good agent could show them. So
let's go there for a moment, because I always wondered about this. When an agent has access to MLS, and of course most do, is the information you're getting there much more deeper, or in terms of the volume of the inventory, than if you were to look online? Let's say, you pass by a house, there's a sign up, or you hear that it's for sale, you type in the address. Maybe it comes up on Zillow, maybe it doesn't. Could it be on MLS or listed on MLS and not there? I'm just wondering how important MLS is to the real estate industry nowadays.
Yeah, that's a great question. Realtor.com, Zillow, they're third-party companies, and they get their information from MLS. They're able to download the information from MLS. Okay, so these days, the way things are changing and as quickly as they're changing, people think, well, I'll check Zillow or I'll check Realtor.com. It's all the same. It's all the same information.
Right.
Now, it's supposed to give you all of the information about the house, but that doesn't always work out the way you think. And that's also why it's important to have somebody who's looking out for your interest, that knows what to look for. You know, I remember an agent, this was years ago, but it still bears. They turned around and told the buyer, because the seller had said the hot water heater was owned. Turned out it wasn't owned, it was rented. And so, yeah, in some areas they don't even do that. But here in Connecticut, there are areas where they will rent you a hot water heater.
I've never heard of that.
Yeah. Well, I hadn't either.
What?
Fortunately,
What?
I wasn't the agent that ended up having to buy the buyer a new hot water heater, because the seller had represented that they owned it when in fact they didn't. There's a little tag. If you ever wanted to know, look at your hot water heater. There's a little tag on it. It's not big, but it says owned by, and it'll have the company there. So you can look it up and find, guess what? Yeah, this is rented, which means as a buyer now, when I buy the house, I either have to take over those payments or I've got to go buy my own. Well,
Been a while.
The realtor involved in this, Steve, ended up having to buy the buyer a hot water heater.
It's been a while since I needed one. Are they really that expensive that you need to rent one? I mean, I've had a house where 2 houses back, I put in on demand. The unit was this big. I'm not even kidding. With an expansion tank.
Right.
There was some expense involved, but it was great. It saved energy and all that. Why would you rent one? I don't know. I know we're digressing here, but I've never heard of it.
I hadn't either. And but the only reason I brought it up is because as a buyer, you wouldn't even know to look for that. So if you looked at somebody's house,
Sure.
you're thinking that comes with it, and you find out later that it doesn't. I'll give you another example. We just found this one happening recently, was the difference between city sewers and septic tanks.
Sure.
Seller turned around and said, oh, no, we're connected. And they weren't. They were still feeding off the septic tank. Buyer turned around and came in. Well, wait a minute. You told us you were connected to city water, city sewer. Those are the kinds of it seems like a little thing, but that can turn up and blow up a deal. So it's important to have somebody that can look out for your interest on those things. And this is all public information if you know where to look. So.
You must have seen so many interesting situations, especially at closing. I know of a friend who sold a house and they were getting divorced, and his ex, they offered the pool robot cleaner, which they're pricey, at least like $1,500, maybe a little bit more. It was offered and in the beginning, but it turns out his ex sold it to take the cash and run. And can't make this up. And so at closing, it held it up because they were going back and forth. And where's the concession going to come from? She took it. Where is it? I thought you said it was included. Now it sounds minor, but again, it's almost $2,000. And the buyer expected it to be included. So eventually there was a concession made for it. I'm sure you've seen a lot at closing. Anything stands out in your mind? Crazy situations?
One of the best ones was this son who tried to sell a house he was living in that he didn't own. His parents actually still held a life estate in the property. They were letting him live there. And the plan was that if he moved out, they would have sold it, or if they passed, it would have gone to him. But he tried to sell it before they passed. And it was interesting when this was one of mine. And when I found out about it, I just went to him and said, you can't sell this. And I was wrong. He actually could sell his interest in it. Of course, no attorney would have ever let it go to the closing table, but he could have. And I was like, I never even realized that, So yeah, there are lessons every day that we
Wow.
pick up on.
How do you sell your interest in it? It reminds me of an episode of the Brady Bunch where they divided the house in half, and there was a situation going on. Like, you
Yeah.
take your half.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
When it comes to any coach, accountability is key, and that's something that you offer to everybody that you work with in the real estate industry. Uh, can you share some of those things in terms of accountability? As somebody's doing your program.
It's probably the number one thing that top producers ask for more than anything else. Hold me accountable.
Hmm.
And people go, well, how can a coach possibly do that? Well, number one, you have to be dealing with somebody who actually wants to change, who wants to grow. Because if they don't want to grow, they won't do any of the things they need to do. They'll find every excuse not to. But when they want to grow, they want you to push them. They want you to hold. I never set goals for people. I sit down with them. We talk about it. What do you want to make? I ask them all the why questions about why is that important to you, and get to a real number. And once we get to that number, I can tell them how many appointments they need to go on, how many listings they need to take, all of
Wow.
that.
Wow.
Okay. And once we sit down with that, then it becomes a matter of, okay, this is what you need to do. You need to go on, let's just say it's 2 listing appointments a week for the next 6 months. Let's start talking about where are you going to find those? What are you going to do to get those? Whether it's making phone calls or sending out postcards or talking to the neighbors or whatever it is. I don't care what it is, as long as we talk about what it is, so that next week when we talk, I'm going to say to you, okay, how many of your neighbors did you talk to? How many postcards did you send out? What did you do? And when the numbers don't add up, when all of a sudden those well, we can go right back and say, well, we know why, because you said this is what you're going to do, you didn't do it. I start to realize when somebody's getting skeptical when all of a sudden they start rescheduling calls with me. I set up the calls to be the same time on the same day every week. When all of a sudden I start getting messages going, oh, I've got a doctor's appointment, or I got to do this, or I got to do, I know they're getting skeptical because nobody wants to come to one of those calls and say, I didn't do anything this week. So it
So
pushes them.
these are tried and true strategies where and is it the first thing one of the first things that somebody says to you, you ask of them how much money you want to make, and then you come up with a formula for that? Well, okay, obviously if somebody says this huge amount, let's be real, but is it a certain number of listings, certain number of calls, etc., that based on your experience, this is what you need to do to reach this amount?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've coached enough people so that I know now how many appointments people need to go on to hit certain numbers. What's interesting is that most of these agents, they don't know what number they really want to hit. They'll mention some number that's a pie in the sky kind of thing, and then I'll sit down and break it down with them. We'll talk about what their expenses are, how much are they actually paying every month out to live. What do you want to make for profit? What's your plan for retirement? By the way, the number one plan for most agents, the number one plan is death. They have no plan for retirement.
Yeah.
And it's you see that a lot. So I'll sit down with them and we'll talk about planning for retirement, planning to sell your business when you're getting ready. The agents go, what do you mean sell my business? I'm like, you're a professional. When a doctor retires, they sell their practice. When a dentist retires, they sell their practice. Why aren't you
Sure.
selling yours? Well, most of them go, well, I don't have one. Well, we can fix that.
Right.
And I do.
And a lot of times it's hard to sell those because they are the face of the business. So that's listen, great challenge to have there where you've worked yourself to the level where you are the business. Interestingly, talking about goals, I joined a men's group about 6 weeks ago, and we meet every week, and we've done different things, community projects and such, and leadership, but the accountability is there where every week we have to give our commitments. What are we going to do? And it could be, I'm going to hit the gym 4 times, at least an hour each. It could be, I'm going to read this important book. I'm going to spend more time with my spouse, my kids, whatever it is, whatever it is. But if you don't do it, and you have to be honest, otherwise, what's the point? There's what's called the cleanup. And the cleanup is I loosely put, the punishment if you haven't done it. And it could be, it could be 50 push-ups in front of the group, or it could be what, and nobody really wants to do that, and we're honest, yeah, we didn't do it, but there's accountability. I think we need to put that on ourselves. If you make a goal, you need to stick to it, because what's the point? You're not going to progress. You're not going to move your life forward without that. And why even hire a coach if you're not going to do it? And I get what you're saying, skeptical. It's not you, it's them.
Yeah, it is. It absolutely is. Top producers understand it. I had 3 people at the group yesterday turn around and talk about, he's going to push you. These are guys who are making a lot of money, and they're going, he's going to push you, but he's going to push you to do what you said you wanted to do.
Right.
And that's the whole thing. When you set goals in this group, you say, this is what I want to accomplish. And if you don't accomplish it, the only one that suffers is you. They don't suffer. You do. So that's really what I push people to do. I push them to do what they said they want to do, but I give them a lot of technique along the way so that it helps them to reach those goals.
Well, that's the key point. Many of us don't know what to do. And let's face it, you get in your car, what do? GPS. Yeah. It tells you where to go. It's the step-by-step. Mike, when we talk about top producers, some of the examples that you're giving, and this is anonymous, we don't know who these people are. What are some of the numbers out there? People that are doing fairly well, people that are doing really well. Can you share that?
I've got people that are doing over 500,000 a year that they're putting in their own pocket. I've also got newer agents that, they're doing 25, 30. I think, one of the best examples for me, and I love telling this story, because this woman came to me and she said, I'm going to hire you, but I don't want to make too much money. And I'd never had anybody ever say that to me before. And I said, why? She said, well, I'm divorced and I'm getting some money. And if I make over a certain amount, I'm going to lose that. So I said, okay, I'll work with him, whatever parameters you set, and that's what we'll do. And 2 years later, when we were doing business plans for the 3rd year, I said to her, what if you made enough that you don't have to worry about that settlement money? And she said, you could do that? And I said, no, but you could. I can guide you, but you could do it. And she said, well, what would I have to change? So we went through a bunch of things. Well, the next year she did 230,000.
Wow.
And it was such a great feeling for her that she said, I'm not dependent on anybody anymore.
Yeah.
And since then, she just keeps growing.
Wow.
Nothing gets in her way anymore.
I know exactly what you're talking about, because a lot of friends who are women and in divorce situations or have been divorced, and most of them say that I don't want all of that I could be taking, because I have pride. And, I want to show I got this. I don't need that. Great. It's there, but I don't need that. Fantastic. Mike, it's always great talking with you. You truly are a breath of fresh air in all of this, and not even just in the real estate industry, but just in general, of what you offer. I don't do real estate, but if that was even a little bit of a passion, you would be my lifeline. I'm serious. I would get my license and that would be it.
I appreciate that. I mean, I tell people that I will never quit on you. I've had agents that have gone on and done other things, but they still call me back. I mean, I still get calls back going, can you help me with it? Yeah. I mean, just because I'm not coaching you don't mean I won't help you. I will help forever. So,
and I truly get the real estate end of things, because I believe I shared previously that I had some relatives. My aunt was very successful. My mom worked with her. I still remember before there was computers, where you would get an envelope with a packet of MLS listings with the loose leaf binder holes in it, and black and white photographs. All the information
out of the book.
Out of the book. Yeah. Amazing. Mike, how do we find you?
MikeFiddler.com. 2 Ds. You can go to my website, Up in the top right corner, there's a link that says free consultation. Just click on it. It'll take you to my calendar. Book 30 minutes free. I'll spend 30 minutes with you. Whatever you want to talk about.
Awesome.
That's my goal becomes yours. So, or vice versa. Your goal becomes mine.
If your goal is real estate, that's the guy right there, MikeFiddler.com. Mike, again, thank you so much, and we'll talk next time.
Thanks again, Steve. We'll talk to you again. Bye-bye.
We'll be right back.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
Mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.